works. And good morning, friends. Welcome to the bright side. I am Pharmacist Ben. Our number today, 844-236-6010, 844-236-6010. If you have questions, comments, success stories you'd like to share, if you just want to contribute to the conversation today, we love hearing from you. 844-236-6010 is our number today and every day on the bright side. We'll be speaking to Christina Rillo, author of several books. Her latest book is called Overwhelmed and Over It. Embrace your power to stay centered and sustained in a chaotic world. Her website is pathsofselflove.org, and she talks about self-love. She talks about power strategies for dealing with chaos in a crazy world. And we'll talk to Christina Rillo. And in our third segment, at the bottom of the hour, we'll get your calls. In our next segment, 844-236-6010. This whole idea of staying centered in a chaotic world is so important now. Now more than ever, it seems like the world is chaotic, but as we've been talking about over the last few months with our guests, we are actually really going through a change. And change can be traumatic, and indeed the only thing there is to fear is, the only thing we fear is change. How ironic, because that's the only thing that's constant, is change. So our strategy of fearing change is inevitably going to cause angst. According to Christine, the way to deal with angst is self-love, and I buy that 100%. She says, being best friends with yourself, being madly in love with yourself. We'll talk to Christina Rillo in our third segment, and get your calls next segment, 844-236-6010. If you want to purchase longevity products, go to brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. You can purchase longevity products off the websites. You can also click on the Join the Team link if you want to sign up to join the Brightside Ben team. You can also call 866-735-2470 for a one-time $30 fee. You can be in business for yourself, have a home-based business, and help spread the word about the power and importance of a good nutritional supplement program. Of course, you can also get your products at the wholesale price. Even if you just want to get your products at the wholesale price for a one-time $30 fee, it's a great deal. But if you want to start a home-based business, if you like the entrepreneur lifestyle, if you want to work for yourself, if you want to make some spare change, or you want to make a full-time income, the longevity business opportunity is something that you want to at least check out. Call 866-735-2470 or hit the Join the Team link at brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. Okay, so we've been talking about one of my favorite subjects when it comes to health, when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to skincare, when it comes to food, and that's the subject of fats. Lately, when I say lately, in the last maybe 10 years or so, we've come to respect fats as a source of nutrition and as a component of our diets. Before then, we had a fear of fats. In the 90s and the early 2000s, when I was kind of really diving deep into the world of nutrition, it was all about low-fat, high-carb. It was all about make sure you're eating your carbs after you work out. Make sure you're getting your carbs. Make sure you stay away from fat. And you had all these cookies and snacks and chips that all came out with fake fat or no fat. Remember, there was a product called Olestra. I don't know if it's still out, but it had some awful side effects, and it was a fake fat. They had Pringles with Olestra, as if putting Olestra in, cooking your Pringles with Olestra turned your Pringles into a health food or into a good food. This misunderstanding of fats, this fat phobia that we lived through for probably 30 or 40 years, starting in the 1940s and 1950s with Ansel Keys, he of the University of Minnesota Department of Nutrition fame, who said, it's all about the fat. You got to make sure you're eating your carbs. Of course, he was funded by Pillsbury and General Mills, all these starch companies, these companies that made money by selling breads and cereals and snack foods. And he came out with this thing called the Lipid Hypothesis. You guys have probably all heard the story. We've talked about it a lot on this program. Dr. Wallach talks about it a lot. The Lipid Hypothesis of heart disease. And everybody wanted to stay away from fats. Today, we got the ketogenic diet. And it's ironic because we've known about the ketogenic diet from a medical perspective for probably 100 years. Ketogenic diet, even more, maybe 120 years. The ketogenic diet was first explored as a medical strategy for treating seizure disorders before they had anti-seizure medications back at the turn of the 20th century, early 1900s. And then we kind of forgot about it, and then about maybe 10 years ago or so, it became hot again. And indeed, I've said this many times, the ketogenic diet is probably the perfect way to eat. The ketogenic diet is a high-fat diet. Everybody knows that. Good fat, of course, not potato chips, not donuts, but good fat. And that includes saturated fats, by the way, like coconut oil. And good fats. And then it's also, they say, which I don't really know what this means, but they say moderate protein. So you get a small amount of protein, and then low carb. Here's the key to the ketogenic diet that most people don't keep in mind. This is what you have to keep in mind if you're taking advantage of if you want to take advantage of the ketogenic diet, or if you've taken advantage or tried to take advantage of the ketogenic diet and it didn't work. It's because you forgot the major point. The major point is not high fat, low carb. Major point is not the high fat, it's not the low carb. The major point of the ketogenic diet is low calorie. That's the ketogenic diet. It's a high percentage of your calories from fat and low percentage of your calories from carbs. But the key is the low carbs. Low calories. You got to keep your calories down to maybe 1,200 a day, 1,300 a day. And that's not easy to do, folks. 1,200 calories a day is not much food at all. I mean, a Big Mac is probably 800 or 900, maybe even more calories. One of those big Carl's Jr.'s things, or Hardee's has this big, disgusting hamburger. That's like 2,500 calories or something along those lines. Don't hold me to that number, but it's a lot. So you got to keep your calories down at 1,200. That's not a lot of food. That's the real way the ketogenic diet works. It's not a lot of food. And of the food you're eating, a high percentage has to come from quality fats. And that includes saturated fats, too. Saturated fats and that's another myth, by the way, about fats, is that saturated fat's bad, polyunsaturated fat's good. I remember there was a commercial that came out in the, I think it was the 1970s, Mazola. There was an Indian guy, he said, Mazola's corn oil, and they were talking about how Mazola is good oil for you because it's polyunsaturated oil. No, that's not true. Polyunsaturated oils are very problematic, especially if you cook with them. Saturated oils, on the other hand, you can cook with. That's why you can cook with butter. That's why you can cook with coconut oil. That's why I'm a fan of coconut oil, by the way, even though some people aren't. Even though you hear people say no coconut oil, I don't buy into that because coconut oil has a lot of saturated fat in it. And saturated fats are stable. This whole idea of saturation and unsaturation has, surprise, surprise, has to do with electricity. That's really where fats, this is what distinguishes fats, is their electrical nature. The distinction between fats and water that we've been talking about for a long time is really a distinction of electricity. Fats store electricity. Water conducts electricity. The combination of water and the combination of storage and conduction is where you get electrical action. The electricity has to be stored and it has to be conducted. It's stored in the fats and it's conducted in the liquids. And the combination occurs at the level of the cell membrane, which has a fatty nature, mostly, and a little bit of a watery nature. And in fact, there's one kind of cell membrane that is really problematic and has a big, big role to play in autoimmune disease, diabetes, cancer, and a lot of health issues. In fact, it is one of the major causes of what I've been calling dirty blood. I'm Pharmacist Ben. We'll continue on the bright side right after this. Okay, we are back on the bright side. I'm Pharmacist Ben. 844-236-6010 is our number. We'll get your calls momentarily, so hang tight. In fact, we're going to go to our calls early today because we got Robert who wants to speak to us. Robert, hang on, because I know you always got good stuff to say. I always cut you off. So we're going to give you some air time. Christina Rillo will be with us in our next segment. Her book, Overwhelmed and Over It, Enhance Your Power to Stay Centered and Sustained in a Chaotic World. I've dedicated my life personally, spiritually, professionally to helping people understand chaos. Chaos in the body, chaos in the skin, chaos in the mind, chaos in the world. It's so important to recognize that chaos only occurs at the level that we're perceiving it as. What do I mean by that? Well, according to physics, something called chaos theory tells us that chaos becomes ordered at a higher level of at a higher level of vision, at a higher perspective. When you look at things from a higher level, chaos becomes order. And then it becomes chaos again, and then you look at it at a higher level, it becomes order. So the key to understanding chaos is to look at it from a higher perspective. If your life is chaotic, and you can tell your life is chaotic if you're experiencing angst in any way. I love that word, angst. It really says so much. Not that I love angst, but I love the word angst. If you're experiencing angst, you're experiencing psychological chaos. The brain doesn't like chaos. How do you deal with chaos? Well, you don't try to organize it piece by piece. You take a higher perspective where you can see the pattern that emerges out of chaos. I call that going meta, M-E-T-A, meta. You always want to go meta. If you have a problem in your life, if you're experiencing angst, go meta. We go meta on the bright side every day when we try to organize the chaos, the seeming chaos, the apparent chaos of disease, the apparent chaos of the body, the apparent chaos of all of the stuff that's going on at any one moment in the biological system. So when what we talk about every day is a way of going meta so we can understand what the chaos is all about. That's why this is such an unusual nutrition program. I'm not just telling you to take this supplement or that supplement. I want you to see the order in the chaos, how the chaos takes place. Then we become powerful. When we can see the order in the chaos, how the chaos is, the actual organization of the chaos, we have power over it. Diabetes doesn't just, the medical model wants you to think that these diseases like diabetes and cancer just randomly occur. They do not randomly occur. If you're in the chaos level, it looks like it's random. But if you take yourself one level up, if you go meta and see the organization, you can see the logic. And if you can see the logic, you can deconstruct it. You can reconstruct it. And it gives us power. We don't have to just listen to somebody saying, take this or take that. Take this supplement or take that supplement. All right, 844-236-6010. We're going to talk about, I've been saying, referring to dirty blood for a long time. And dirty blood is kind of a colloquial way of saying coagulopathy. Technically, dirty blood is coagulopathy. Coagulation, pathology. It's a blood-thickening pathology. Technically, it's called coagulopathy. There's actually a condition called disseminated intravascular coagulopathy, or DIC. And DIC is dirty blood. And dirty blood is behind everything. And one of the major causes of dirty blood is fats, a specific kind of fat called LPS. And I will talk about that on our next Brightside episode. We'll be talking about it for a while. I want to hit the phones now, 844-236-6010. Let's say good morning to our friend Robert. What's up, buddy? I'm going to give you some airtime today. What's going on, Robert?
I appreciate that. Thanks for taking my call,
Sure.
Ben. So let's tie up viruses. So would it be an oversimplification for me to say that viruses are the trash collectors of the cellular system? Is that too simple?
No, that's not. It's not that it's not. It's not that it's simple. It's just wrong. It's that they're not the trash collectors. They're information.
Okay.
They're just pieces of information. Okay. Everything in life is information. Inform.
Right.
Take the word information. You know, I love words, etymology. And words can, if you break words down and understand words, they can be very instructive. Information is inform. Do you know what the opposite of information is?
No.
Noise. In physics and electromagnetics, they call signal noise. Signal is information. Signal has meaning to it. Noise has no meaning to it. Everything in life is in form. If it's in a form, it's information. Information. If it's in a form, it's information. And in the biological system, the fundamental, listen to me, what I'm going to say now. This is really important and a little bit tricky, but listen to what I'm saying. In the body, the fundamental piece of information in the biological system, the fundamental piece of information, like letters, are fundamental to words, to sentences, to paragraphs, to books. Letters are the fundamental piece of information in language, correct? Do you see how that's true?
Yeah.
Letters.
Yeah.
I'll say it again. Letters are the fundamental piece of information in language. Well, the body's a language. The body's speaking to you, and it has a fundamental piece of information. That fundamental piece of information, you ready for this? I'm going to say this is very important now. Okay? The fundamental piece of information, like words are fundamental to language, the fundamental piece of information in the biological system, biological languages, are called nucleotides. Have you heard that term? Nucleotides.
Yeah.
Okay, so nucleotides, we don't talk about them that much, but nucleotides, I'm not going to get into the biochemistry of it, just know that they're the letters that make up the human body language, if the human body's language. Are we okay so far? Because the next step is going to be really important.
Yeah.
Okay? So nucleotides are the letters that make up the biological language. Okay, now what I'm going to say now is very, very important. A virus is nucleotides.
Okay.
Did you get that? A virus is nucleotides. It's a string of nucleotides. Now, in the body, we have strings of nucleotides. Those are called genes. Okay?
Okay.
And we know genetics, and this is how the body's formed, from the genes, from the nucleotides. Well, a virus is genetics. It's nucleotides. And they're everywhere. Everywhere on the planet. If the planet were a sponge, you think of the planet as a sponge, viruses saturate that sponge. The planet is a sponge that's wet with viruses. They're frickin' everywhere. And the stupidity, the utter stupidity. I don't know how much of doctors on TV talking about how to protect yourself from viruses is it's so infuriating to me. Now, I don't get mad at them as individuals because they're trying to help. They're good. But the stupidity of the idea of locking yourself up and taking vaccines to protect yourself against something that is so endemic in the culture is it's the epitome of idiocy. And it's the epitome of medical ignorance.
Agreed.
Now, but I'm not saying that this is about individuals. I don't want to blame individual doctors because they're good people. It's the model. The doctors are just trying to save us from symptoms. We have to protect ourselves from interference of information. The way you do that is by keeping the body strong, because over the course of millions of years, we have developed a system to protect ourselves from viruses. It's called the immune system. Now, when there are novel viruses, it's a little harder. And this is one that's in our culture today is a novel virus. Nonetheless, there are ways to protect yourself by boosting your immune system. You still hear people saying that this idea of boosting the immune system is silly. I've heard, according to the Canadian Dietetic Association, I put this on our Facebook page, they say boosting the immune system is silly. You can't boost the immune system. So this is the world we live in. Do you understand how a virus is not a thing, it's a piece of information? Did that make sense?
Got it.
Okay, now one last thing I want to say. Viruses actually promote evolution, and that's why 20 to 30 to 40% of our genetics are viral. They came from viruses that promoted the body's evolution. And we're just out of time. We got a guest coming up at the bottom of the hour. I hope I helped. I hope I didn't confuse that, Robert, but thanks so much for your question. Christina Rillo coming up in our next segment. We're back on the bright side. I'm Pharmacist Ben, and we're on the air Monday through Friday, 8 to 9 Pacific, 10 to 11 Central Time, and 24/7 on the archive page at benfuchsarchives.com. We've got pushing 10 years of daily shows archived at benfuchsarchives.com with a search engine. Thank you to Peter in the UK for sending that one up. We also have a archive page at brightsideben.com, a listen live on brightsideben.com, and you can check out my blog and news stories and blog posts and various interviews, etc. Lots of good health information at pharmacistben.com and criticalhealthnews.com. Of course, the longevity products are up as well, and you can click on the Join the Team link if you want to sign up to join the Brightside Ben team. And don't forget to take a look at our Truth Skin Health products at truthtreatments.com, all formulated in my compounding pharmacy for dealing with wounds and pre-surgical and post-surgical issues, acne and eczema, never any preservatives, fragrances, fillers, waxes, emulsifiers, just 100% active and functional ingredients in all of our Truth Skin Health products. Health is beauty, and healing is beauty, and that's why we have almost 1,300, a little over 1,300 4- and 5-star reviews. You can check them all out at truthreviewed.com, and all our Truth Treatments are at truthtreatments.com, truthtreatments.com. Okay, I am excited to speak to our guest. Christina Rillo is the author of multiple books. They all have a theme, and we're going to talk about that. Her latest book is called Overwhelmed and Over It. Embrace your power to stay centered and sustained in a chaotic world. And indeed, you don't have to spend too much time watching TV or reading a newspaper to feel that the world is chaotic. I suspect the world has always been chaotic, but it seems really, really chaotic now. And learning how to stay centered and sustained in a chaotic world seems like a really good idea in the year 2020 in the United States of America and on planet Earth. Please welcome to the bright side, Christina Rillo. Hello, Christine.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me here today.
Yes, and thank you for being here, and thank you for being this very interesting, special, wise woman. You have a very interesting wisdom associated with you. I've been watching your videos, and I'm almost done with Overwhelmed and Over It, so thank you so much for what you're doing, especially now when the world is seeming as crazy as it is. So what does it mean, and how can you embrace your power to stay centered and sustained in this chaotic world?
Well, I think the first thing I would just say to everybody out there is if you're feeling overwhelmed or stretched too thin or like it's never going to be over, is that it's not your fault, the overwhelm. That what you said is exactly right. We have been increasing the levels of intensity on this planet for years, and it's kind of like what's happened is we've hit a super, super, super boiling point.
Kind
of
like a phase shift? Like a phase shift, you think?
Yeah, more like it's either like a breakdown to break through. It's not as gentle as a phase shift.
Okay, gotcha. It's destruction. It's like a caterpillar getting smushed and turning into a butterfly?
Yeah, we're in the goo, you all.
We're in the goo.
We are in the hot, hot goo right now. And I think that's just something I think it really can just, the starter, help people to get, 2020 didn't just happen. I look back at, you were talking about your old podcast, your old interviews. I was just looking back at my old podcast from 4 or 5 years ago. We've been talking about intensity and overwhelm for years and years, and really decades. I mean, decades and decades. And we've been trying to figure it out and fix it through things like work-life balance and stress management and time management and really what I've found in my research, it's been about 10 years I've been researching burnout and overwhelm and this kind of unsustainable reality we find ourselves in as humans. And what I've found is that we've been really trying to just kind of Band-Aid the symptoms to just keep our heads above the water. And what's happened in 2020 is like a deluge. Like now we're just feel a little bit like we're all underwater.
We can't doggy paddle anymore.
We can't doggy paddle.
We got to sink or swim.
It's pretty true. In fact, it's interesting you mentioned the wisdom piece. There's this really beautiful Hopi elder prophecy that came out, like a wisdom teaching in the late 1900s, the late last century, early this century, and they use the metaphor of the river. And the message says something like there will be a great river that's coming, and it's running very, very fast. And you can try to hold on to the shore, basically, but don't, because those who try to hold on to the shore
get ripped apart.
Will get ripped apart. I don't want to change. I just want things to be better. Can't things
back to normal?
The way they are?
How about back to normal? Have you heard back to normal?
I do, and every time I say, don't say that. Normal was unhealthy. And what they say is let go of the shore and allow yourself to float to the middle of the river and let the river carry you and find others like you. They say it's the time to gather yourself.
Wow.
Like this is going to be a great transformational time. We can't stop it. So it's how are you going to go through it is really the question.
Okay, so that's perfect, because this is what I really wanted to talk about, because all of your books and all of your work have a certain theme, number one, and what you're talking about right now, letting go and and going down the river, is trust. But to do trust, you have to have this quality that you talk about a lot. In fact, I consider it to be the theme of your work, and that's this idea of self-love. Right? That seems to be underneath everything. So first of all, talk about why we don't have that, and then what we can do to get it.
Well, super astute of you to figure that, to find that out. It's so interesting because my first 3 books are really definitely dedicated to self-love, and we have a big misunderstanding in this country about what self-love is. About 2002, 2001, I had what I call my big universal wake-up call, and so maybe, I don't know if you've had one of these, but for anyone listening, where like you get that whisper in your head or that your ear that says there's time for a change. You need to.
It's usually preceded by disaster.
Usually preceded by disaster, drama, and my inner wisdom kept saying to me, "You need to leave this relationship," and I'm like, no. So a year goes by, another year goes by, 14 years later, and an engagement ring on my finger. I'm like, I'm not trusting, I'm controlling, and thank God I could look back at that experience now. But what happened is on the way to my engagement party, my former fiance basically ended the engagement. And that's one of those things, right? We've all had these moments where, it's like these catalytic moments. And that's what's happening right now globally. So
like a culture, as a society.
Like a society, and then all the crap that you haven't dealt with in your life that needs catalyzing is also up right now. So that's where like the levels of overwhelm and intensity are so much, and we're trying to solve it mentally with mindfulness. We're trying to solve it with let me just eat better food, and so we try to solve it physically, and those
supplements.
Things are important. Well, which are important. Like I take vitamin D.
I talk about them every day. Yeah, but what you're talking about is going to a higher level, where all this stuff comes from. I think is that what you're saying?
To a deeper level. So, but that moment when I had that big life catalyst, which is similar to what we're facing now individually and collectively, I had a choice. Like I could try to repair what happened and just repeat. And I just made a really clear choice in that moment, because that voice said, "Look, Christine," it was so specific. It said, "You have self-esteem. A lot of it. And I did. I had my MBA. I had a big corporate job at the time. I had lots of friends. I was like, you would look at me, she's a very well-adjusted, happy person. And in many ways I was, but I didn't know what I didn't know because I didn't know what was going on in my heart. And I didn't want to look in there because I knew, like, once I started to look in there, like, like it was just going to all, like,
Did the heartbreak make you look at the heart? Did it force you to look at the stuff that we were avoiding? Did heartbreak do that?
That saying, heart broken open, right? And so when your heart breaks open like that, which is happening for all of us right now in different ways, you either can stuff fear back in, or you can choose love, and that's where self-love comes in.
Okay, that's awesome. But I want to talk exactly how steps, like practical steps that we could do, Christine. Christina Rillo, her website is pathofselflove.org. We'll be back with more of Christina Rillo on the Bright Side right after this. Okay, we are back on the Bright Side. We're talking to Christina Rillo about her book, Overwhelmed and Over It. Embrace your power to stay centered and sustained in a chaotic world. Christine, before we went to break, we were talking about self-love, and I want to talk about some practical steps. But before we get to that, you have this idea that you talk about in the book, and I wonder if you could just expand on it or expound on it a little bit. About it's kind of a distinction between the old slogan or saying it's better to give than it is to receive, and you kind of have your take on it, which is it's better to give and receive, and I think that has something to do with self-love. So before you talk about the practical steps, can you discuss that distinction a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was doing the research for the book, one of the things that was really clear is I wanted to be able to write a book that actually gave people a real way to actually liberate ourselves out of overwhelm and self-sacrifice, not just be like, here's 7 more tips on, how to have self-care. And what I found were there are these 12 imprints that are like unconscious imprints that are not just beliefs that we have in our minds, but they run our emotions. They're in our cellular bodies, our physical memory. And one of those is this imprint. We've all heard it. It's better to give than receive, right? You've heard it? I've heard it. And it seems so innocuous, right? Like, whatever. But like if you break it down and really look at it as an imprint that's been imprinted into your psyche, you'd be like, wow, so if it's true that it's better to give than receive,
then you don't get anything.
Well, yeah, and explains why we all feel guilty, right? When like someone tries to help, you're like, oh, no, I got it.
Martyr syndrome. We're all martyrs.
Martyr syndrome.
Yeah.
Or like I do retreats, and my partner Noah is a big, like 250-pound, lovely man. And he often will come up to the women and say, "Hey, can I take your bags for you?" And you would not believe it.
No.
And they yell at him, like they're like, almost like, no, I've got it. Like to get really like tough, like they're like, Mr. Man, like back off. And
what do you say to the universe when you're saying no every time someone wants to give you something?
You're saying you're basically refusing support.
Yeah.
And this is the piece about overwhelm, and this is why I rewrote the equation to it's better to give and receive. Just change that one little letter, or that one little word, right? And because what we're experiencing is levels of just people not feeling supported. And not having the support that we need. And we don't even realize, and this is where the embrace your power to stay centered and sustain comes from in the subtitle, is that we don't realize how much of what we need to be supported and be cared for, we're actually pushing away.
Yeah, we're rejecting the universe's support with all of this. And because isn't the universe inherently supportive because everything is one thing? So everything's kind of pushing against everything else, everything's leaning on something because it's all one thing, no?
Yes, so the law is basically the universe, 2 things. 1, it naturally is working to come into harmony.
Right.
And 2, you're guaranteed sufficiency. You're not guaranteed a mansion on a hill with a Rolls Royce.
You don't need that.
You don't need
it.
Yeah. You don't. Exactly, and that's really what this new book and really the work in addition to self-love is about self-sustainability and really designing lives and relationships with your work and relationships with your family and relationships with yourself that actually support you to be sustained.
Awesome. And then you have all the support. What a wonderful life potentially we can have. We're actually intentionally pushing things away, intentionally creating angst where it doesn't have to be there.
Yeah, right. And we're also setting ourselves up. A lot of this overwhelm that we feel is systemically generated because of the whacked out way our culture is right now.
Yeah.
That's part of what we're seeing with 2020 is the universe is like, humans, you are completely out of harmony. So it's like we're just gonna like turn this all upside down.
Oh my gosh!
You know,
Did it ever? Did it ever?
So that's what's happening with the universe. You can all take a breath and an exhale into that. Like, just be real, you all. Like, the way we've been working and living hasn't been working.
Yeah, it's not real
for anybody.
Yeah.
Except for
no, it's
maybe
not.
a few.
It's not. Well, you know what? Not necessarily. I mean, maybe they superficially, but there's a lot of people who are superficially okay, but deep down they're not. So it's not working for. I would say it's very, very few people that it's actually working for, the system that we've created. So in a way, it's kind of necessary for it to fall apart. So tell us specifically, okay? Self-love sounds great, great concept, but you don't know my life. I was traumatized as a kid. My mom died. I'm not saying this is me, but I'm just saying hypothetically. I'm traumatized as a kid. My mom got killed, murdered. My dad had cancer. You know, all these horrible, horrible things. How can you actually leverage these ideas that sound really nice in a practical sense?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I'm all about, my superpower is taking big esoteric ideas like self-love or overwhelm and self-sustainability and breaking it down to be really practical. And all of those things, many of those things you just said actually did happen to me. My father died when I was 14. My best friend was murdered when I was 15.
Wow.
Like, I have my share of things that, this is the planet. I mean, this is one of the core teachings around self-love, and the heart, the human heart, is you're born into the planet and you're like, this is really exciting. I'm here. I can't wait to give my gifts. They're going to give my gifts. We're going to meet people. It's going to be lovely. We're going to have this great life. And then you meet someone who's been here for longer, and all that fear, shame, blame, anger, whatever starts to seep into your heart, and then you develop all of these imprints to basically survive on this planet. And then there comes the time where you're like I had when I was 30, and I had the big wake-up call of like, oh my God, not only did I almost marry the wrong person, I almost designed the wrong life.
That would be terrible. That would be terrible.
It would have been. It was very easy. A lot of people are living the wrong lives right now because we've just been on these race tracks. And so I think I'll give you. I have a deep answer, and I have a kind of like do this first answer.
Perfect.
Which one would you like first?
Do the deep one first, and then we'll end with the practical.
Okay. So one of the if you look at the book cover on Overwhelmed and Over, there's a big line under over it, and that line signifies what I call the power to say no more. And so what I'm inviting everyone to do is to actually look around their lives and really understand, and the whole book is about harmony, not finding balance, but about cultivating harmony, which is what the universe is trying to do. So we need to do that in our own lives. And to look around in your life, look at your work, look at your relationships, look at how you've designed where you live, look at your financial life, and be honest about what is no longer sustainable for you. It probably hasn't been sustainable for a while. It's not working. And that's the first step to change.
That's not easy. That's grief. That's something dying. I mean, you're saying to kill something, basically.
Well, I'm saying to redesign it or release it like the Hopi elders say. Like, let go of the frickin' tree. And let the river carry you. You can get batted around. Or you can let go. And get support. Like, this is the thing. That's why in the story they say, look around for others like you. It's not figure it out all your own and then swim down the river. You know, it's like, no, you get to be supported. And I've had teachers, I've had mentors, I've had many people that have helped me over the last 20 years.
I've always thought support groups could get you through anything. Like the deepest trauma that a human being could have. They had a support group of other people who've gone through it or who are helping. Don't you think that could get you through anything?
Yeah, support. Yes. I mean, we're humans. This is part of what the pandemic is showing us about all of the false connection that we think we're getting, like from social media.
Fake support. Fake support.
What would it call it?
It's fake support, isn't it? Fake support. It's artificial. It's not real support. Like Twitter and social media and the way we're connecting, that's not really supportive, is it?
No, it's not. It's not meaningful connection. It hits that little like dopamine piece, but it's actually not getting into the heart.
It hacks into
connection.
It hacks into the chemistry without giving it for reals.
Oh yeah, Yeah, it's totally.
That's how Facebook works.
It's a totally. I mean, the yogis predict. I also study yogic science. And the yogis predicted back in like the early '90s. One of my teachers talked about this before smartphones, before email. He's like, basically, what's going to happen, they said, is the information coming at us was going to be so much and so intense that it was going to send us into levels of mental, emotional, and energetic overload our systems weren't prepared for. So we were going to develop these like technologies to be able to sort the information, but we don't actually need more information because the information, everyone, is freaking overwhelming us. What we need is wisdom and tools and practices to make choices that are actually in alignment for you. And so that's where the self-love comes from. It's like that no more. I always say it has to come from the heart. It's like when you've made a change in your life, the best ones don't come from the mind. The mind's not the main decision maker. The heart is, and then the mind follows by, helping you plan. But there's like something in your life, you got to be willing to take a stand and say, like, this is no longer okay with me. This is no longer working. I'm just not going to suck it up. Like, I'm just not going to, my work life was already crazy. Now I have to homeschool my kids. Okay, just throw that on. And, let me just, no more.
Wow. That's powerful stuff. I love how you snuck that little thing in there. You study the yogic sciences. Hello. All of that's that's right out of the deepest wisdom. Everything you're talking about is out of the deepest wisdom there is. And thank you for what you're doing. It's beautiful stuff, Christine. Awesome. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks, Christine. Can you hang on the line? Do you mind, Christine?
Yeah, no, great.
Hang on the line. Okay, that's all the time we have for today. I am Pharmacist Ben. Please check out our websites, brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, and criticalhealthnews.com. And take a look at Christina Rillo's website. Her book is Overwhelmed and Over It, and her website is pathofselflove.org, pathofselflove.org. And she's got books and lots of good stuff out there. Also does coaching, too. pathofselflove.org. And that's it for now. Have a wonderful, beautiful, awesome, spectacular day. I'm Pharmacist Ben. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye for now.